Welcome back to the Mile High Sneakers channel, and today I will be restoring a pair of Oreo Jordan 6s from 2009. Even though the shoes are in pieces, they are still in considerably good condition for their age. The main issue with these shoes is that they do not have any midsoles. This is just due to the midsoles crumbling due to their age. Even though the midsoles are gone, there are still some pieces of the midsole that are still remaining on the upper of the shoes. The next issue with these shoes is that the outsoles are heavily oxidized. But considering the oxidization that is on the clear parts of the outsole, the white parts of the outsole are still in great condition. Comparing to the soles to the uppers of the shoes, the uppers are in much better condition, but they are not without their faults. The major issue with the uppers of the shoes is that the back pull tabs have cracked. And the last issue with these shoes is that there's some scratches on the uppers of the shoes that have caused some of the paint to rub off. Before I clean the uppers of the shoes, I'm going to go ahead and remove the remaining bits of the midsole off the uppers of the shoes. To do this, I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife to skive these little pieces off and also try and take some small bits of the material on the uppers of the shoes so that I'll end up having a better re-glue in the end. Next up, I'm going to remove the original back pull tabs as I will not be able to reuse these ones. Similar to how I skived the midsole pieces off the uppers of the shoes, I will use my X-Acto knife to cut the stitching behind the back pull tabs. While the uppers of the shoes aren't terribly dirty, I'm just going to go ahead and give them a quick clean just to make sure that they're looking good. For this, I'm using a cleaning solution in some warm water and using a medium bristle brush to clean the uppers of the shoes. Since the uppers were in good condition, I only went ahead and gave them 2 sessions of cleaning. Before I go ahead and deoxidize the outsoles of the shoes, I'm going to go ahead and clean them with the same solution that I used on the uppers of the shoes, but I'll be using a stainless steel wire brush to clean them as I find better results with it. With the outsoles completely dried, I can go ahead and start taping up the pieces of the outsole that I don't want deoxidized. For these Oreo 6s in specific, I ended up taping up the clear parts of the outsole per customer request. With the clear parts of the outsole taped up, I can go ahead and throw the outsoles into the light box. Since the white parts of the outsole weren't terribly oxidized, I only ended up having to do 3 5-hour sessions on these outsoles. While I have the outsoles in the light box, I'm going to paint the areas where I took a little too much material off. Specifically, I'm going to apply some paint to the nubuck parts of the uppers of the shoes that are covered by the midsole. If you made it to this part of the video and are enjoying it or found it somewhat informational, it would be greatly appreciated if you went ahead and liked and subscribed. I also post before and after photos of each restoration on the channel on Instagram and TikTok. And if you're interested in a restoration service, you can email me with the email on screen or DM me on Instagram for more info. Now with the soles out of the light box, I'm going to clean them with some hot water. This will help in getting any sole sauce that's remaining off the soles of the shoes. Next up is to remove the donor soles from the donor shoe. For this restoration, I'm using a pair of Carmine 6s from 2021 as the donor shoe. To remove the uppers from the midsole of the shoe, I will be using acetone and a blow dryer to aid the process. Firstly, I will use the blow dryer to heat up the glue from the inside of the shoe. Then I will spray some acetone onto the outer portions of the shoe to melt the original glue. With the uppers free from the midsole, I can finally get to work on removing the outsole from the donor midsoles. Just like with the uppers of the shoe, I'll be using heat from a blow dryer and acetone to melt the original glue between the outsole and midsole of the shoes. And unfortunately the outsole did tear, but it's not a big deal since it's not needed for this restoration. Next up is to get the Oreo upper to fit with the donor midsole. Just like always, I'll be using a rotary tool or a Dremel with a sanding bit to remove the upper material from the midsoles. I will also sand away some of the foam from the midsole to get a near perfect fit with the upper of the shoe.
We must pay homage to him.
The last two things I need to do before painting the midsole is to sand it and clean it. I use 600 grit sandpaper to sand any imperfections on the midsole, and then use cotton balls and acetone to clean any sanding remains and remove some of the original finish and paint from the midsole. To start off painting the midsole, I used some plain white paint. I ended up laying down 6 coats of white paint, then sanded down the midsole with 800 grit sandpaper to smooth it out. I made sure that the white paint covered the entirety of the midsole since I would be used as the base coat for the midsole. The second to last thing to do on the midsoles was to paint the parts of the midsole that needed to be black. I first started by painting the edges of the midsole, then filled in the rest of the areas that required the black paint. The last thing to do before reassembling the shoes is to do the paint splatter. I did this by dipping a brush into white paint, then use it to make the splatter effect on the back pull tabs and midsoles. I stand corrected. The actual last thing to do before reassembly is to fix the scratches on the uppers of the shoes by using white paint to fill in the scratches.
We must pay homage to him.